Hello everyone and welcome to another Replica Airguns BB rifle review. My name is Michael K and today we're doing the tabletop review for the Umarex Steel Force CO2 Blowback BB rifle. Now I've already shot my field test, so I'm not going to do a pre-test. I'm just going to follow this video up within the next day or two with the actual shooting or field test review. I will give you some of my feedback on the shooting performance, but there won't be any shooting in this video. I will put a link in here for the shooting video for the field test as soon as I have that up. So let's get right into the specifications. This rifle is a combination of plastic and metal. So a lot of the outer shell is going to be plastic. It does feature some metal internal parts and a couple exterior metal parts. It uses an internal blowback system that allows for semi-auto and 6-round burst shooting capabilities. It uses a dual 12-gram CO2 cartridge setup. And this gun shoots 4.5 millimeter steel BBs, not airsoft BBs. It also has a 300-round gravity-fed hopper with a 30-round spring-fed magazine. So gravity feeds the 300 rounds into the 30-round spring-fed magazine. This gun weighs 3.37 pounds or 1,529 grams. It has a 7.5-inch non-rifled barrel and shoots in single action only. So you need to pull back the charging handle before you can take your first shot if the internal blowback is not already in the backwards position. This gun is claimed to have a feet per second rating of 430, and you'll notice it has these flip-up rear and forward sights. This gun is also made in Japan. Now it does come in a nice cardboard Umarex box here. Nice graphics, specifications on here. And of course it comes with the manual, well laid out, lots of information in there for you. Card there. You get the picture. Now before I show you around this gun, I kind of want to compare it to a couple other products that I have, and I'll just show you the Umarex Steel Storm, very closely related to this gun in terms of how it operates. The internal mechanism is essentially the same, the semi-auto and 6-round burst. You'll see here you have your different positions. Now that's the safety on here, but on this guy you have basically your full auto or 6-round burst. Semi-auto, you have your charging handle in the back. There is no stock on the Steel Storm. It does have a dual CO2 magazine setup, which is similar, and it's got the above hopper, which is 30 rounds, and then the spring-fed 30 rounds, so 300 rounds up top and 30 rounds in the bottom. Gravity feeds into the spring-fed magazine, and then obviously the spring feeds the BBs into the gun, so you don't have any hiccups there with BB loading. This one has some rails on it in different positions. The sights are not flip-up by any means or adjustable, but you can put like a red dot on here like I've done with this one. I also want to show you another sort of AR styled gun, and this is my G&G Raider. This is a gas blowback rifle, and it's styled very closely after an AR. Has the more sort of advanced stock, sort of a more modern stock. That's your typical AR stock on that one. But you'll see here, you know, the selector switch when we get into it is similar. Okay, similar selector, same, you know, magazine location, same basic design. This one has a carry handle on it, but you could take the carry handle off and just have the straight across rail. Same charging handle location. All that's very similar. I'll just show you here where the bolt, the dust cover would be, where the, you know, everything's kind of the same, right? So basically the same style gun. This is just an airsoft version and a little bit more detailed than the Steel Force. Alright, so getting back to the Steel Force, let's just do a quick walk around. First things I want to tell you is what is not included with this rifle. So you don't get the red dot scope that I have here. You don't get this little foregrip here. Now this foregrip is actually from my TAC converter. I've just put it on here for the time being. It just shows well. I've also got this flashlight / red dot on the front here. So these 3 items would not be with this gun. So keep that in mind. They're just there to show you what you can kind of do in terms of add-ons and accessories. So really quickly, what's plastic and what's metal? Let's kind of go over it really fast here. The whole outer shell is essentially plastic. So plastic, rear stock, even most of the switches, the selector switch is plastic. One part that is metal is the actual flash hider. That is metal, so that's kind of nice that that's metal. And even this little guy here for the 30 round spring-fed magazine is plastic. Pretty much everything. Sorry, there are a couple other metal parts. This is metal, this one piece here, and the trigger's metal as well. Now lots of internal metal parts, even in the magazine. I'll show you that later. A lot of metal parts inside this gun, so it does give it an okay weight. I would have liked to have seen some other metal parts. I would have liked to have seen, you know, the selector switches. I would have liked to have seen the charging handle metal. I would have liked to have seen the sights be metal. Things like that would have been nice. As far as the outer shell goes being plastic, I don't have a problem with that. Not too bad. I would have maybe liked to have seen a less shiny plastic, kind of more like what the airsoft guns use. It looks a little bit more realistic, and it seems a little bit higher grade on a lot of the airsoft rifles, but not a big deal. Alright, let's look around here. So here we have our selector switch. Okay, now I don't have any BBs in here, and I'm sure of it. I've done a test fire to make sure, but just in case, I'm pointing it in a somewhat safe direction that hopefully won't rebound into me if there were a BB in here. But I want to show you that it's been charged, so we're good with that. You'll notice a little bit of movement, and then you've got full auto. And that's 6 round burst. It's really crazy. Semi-auto or single action only trigger, because of the blowback it has to be charged. So if I were to, for instance, take out the magazine, and you'll hear that little pop, that's compression coming out. So you'll notice no working trigger until I charge it. And then you have a working trigger. So again, the blowback is not cycling because there's no gas in it. Or no CO2. Put that back in, charge it, and then you get the blowback, which then pulls the whole internal mechanism back, ready for the next shot. And that's how blowback works, and that's what gives this gun its 6 round burst capability. Alright, put that back on safety. So let's take a look at the magazine, since I already have it out, and I'll show it to you. So it's like a dual position thing. You push the magazine release button, which is the normal magazine release button you would have on any AR style gun. It kind of comes to this half-back position. Then you have to push this down to release it the rest of the way. So let's take a look inside. There's your 2 CO2. It does come with 2 of these sort of screws that go into the bottom. They're like a screwdriver, I guess, but they're more like an Allen key, large oversized Allen key. And what I found is you're going to need 2 CO2 because it wants to sort of partially leak. Just be careful when you're filling it up. You may or may not be able to use one at a time. If you do have, say, an empty CO2, you could definitely put it in here and use a full CO2. They'll just equalize. Not a big deal, but it's sort of like a one-way valve setup. So play around with that. I found if you've got it partially in, you will get some leakage. I'm not sure if you don't have one like completely out of there if it'll work. I didn't want to take the chance of losing a whole CO2. But that's how this guy works. You know, it's nice. It looks good. It gives it some weight because, as you saw, there is some metal inside there, right? Some metal. That gives it a little bit of weight. And remember, you get that sort of hiss. That's because it's pressurized and it pops it out, pushes it out from the gas or the CO2 that's inside. So this is our, I'll just kind of show you this. That's where your BBs go, right in there. This covers it up. It's also a flip-up sight as well, right? So we'll put them down for now. But you've got your BBs that go in there, and then you essentially, the best angle is to kind of have it on an angle. If you have it like this, it doesn't want to load, so top to bottom, kind of on an angle, sideways angle. You would then pull this back. I don't want to actually load any BBs in here, so I'm not going to do it all the way. I don't want to accidentally, because I've got gas in here, I have a problem. But you would pull this back, lock it out in there, and then shake the rifle till the BBs feed down here. Now, they don't go all the way to the back. You'll see where they kind of pop in. It's right about here. They kind of pop in and just go down, and then you just follow this up, you release it, and it puts pressure on them and loads them into the gun. So keep that in mind. It's pretty easy to do, no big deal. There is no rail on this side, you'll see. There is a rail on the bottom. You can see I've got some accessories on here. Nice rail. They're plastic rails. There's a rail all along the top, and there's a rail on this side. This one appears to be removable as well. Okay, as I said before, flash hider is all steel. Steel or metal, not sure, but it's definitely metal of some sort. Okay, this button here, this would be your bolt release, is not functional. It's just molded in. Everything's pretty much molded in except for your safety here. But it's just like an AR safety, which is cool. Again, your charging handle functions the actual bolt, internal bolt. That's cool. You've got your rear flip-up sight, and it is basically your peep sight. They are non-adjustable, unfortunately, and they are kind of a cheap plastic. You know, I would have liked to have seen just a slightly higher grade plastic in this. I think that would have been worth a few extra bucks to spend if it were, if they were a little higher. I just like a higher grade plastic. I don't think you're going to have any problems with it. It's more of a looks thing. For me, the looks would have been a little bit more like metal, like they use, like the G&G Raider plastic looks like metal. So that's kind of cool. So you've got multi-adjustable positions here, probably 3 or 4 at least. Quite a few, maybe even 6. I'm not sure, but there's lots of positions there. Okay, we're going to spin this around. Have a look at the other side. Your forward assist is just molded in. Your bolt cover is molded in. Again, this is your magazine release. It is functioning. I think it's plastic, pretty sure. You do have some kind of neat little serial numbers and things. You've got your caliber there, if I can focus. There you go, caliber. Got your typical Umarex warnings all over here, right? It does say made in Japan there, you'll see that. Made in Japan, right there. Again, this dust cover is just molded in, alright? Nice typical AR grip, nothing wrong with that. Alright, as I mentioned before, I have actually shot my field test video for this gun, so I'm not going to show you a pre-test. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the performance and allude to the fact that my field test shooting review will be coming up shortly, so check that one out. I got some slow speed, I've got some can shooting, I've got some chronograph, and of course accuracy testing in both semi and full auto in that video, so check that out when it airs very soon. If you're watching this video, say a week after I posted it, you'll already have the links there in this video for you to check out. Alright, so how did it do in terms of feet per second? Well, it's claimed to have 430. I was getting closer to 470. I was having problems with my chronograph again, but I did get a few good rounds through it and got right around 470 FPS, and it was a medium to hot day. There's definitely room for maybe potentially up to the 480, 490 FPS out of this gun on a hot day. Now, I did shoot from 30 feet out, typical 30 foot out semi-rested position, and got a semi-auto about 1.5 inch group, and then when I went to full auto or 6-round burst, it didn't really spread out too much. They stayed fairly tight. There were a few flyers, but overall pretty tight groups in both semi and full auto. Now in terms of how many shots you get, you can pretty much load up a hopper with close to 300 BBs, put 2 CO2 in there, and I would say you could shoot all of those rounds, or pretty close to all those rounds with the 2 CO2. So you're going to get anywhere from around 250-ish to 300 rounds. Now it depends if you're shooting in semi-auto or full auto, or a combination of both. If you're taking your time a bit, you could probably get through that full 300 round BB hopper shooting with some semi-auto and some full auto with a little bit of rests between them. Alright, let's get into some of the pros and the cons. I like the fact that, of course, this gun had claimed 430, but it got closer to 470 FPS, almost 50 FPS higher. It also had really good accuracy in both semi and 6-round burst modes. It's nice to see. I did get a lot of shots per CO2, pretty close to a full 300 round hopper. It's nice to see the adjustable stock on this model. Pretty much what you would find on an AR. It would be kind of silly to not have a stock on here, but when you compare the Steel Storm versus the Steel Force is definitely a lot easier to shoot. You're going to get a lot more accurate shooting with the adjustable stock. And overall, it's really not that bad a replica of an AR or the AR platform styled guns. Pretty close in general, about the right size, about the right shape, looks pretty good. Now just like the Steel Storm, it has a very high rate of fire. I'm not sure exactly, but I would say at least 1200 rounds per minute shooting in the 6-round burst. Now it does have an internal blowback system, which does give you a little bit of feedback, so it's definitely going to give you a little bit of that kind of recoilish feeling, not like a 22 cal or anything like that, but you can feel it moving a little bit. You can feel it tapping your shoulder just a slight bit with the blowback action. It's not a heavy internal bolt, and that's probably why it has such a high rate of fire, but there is some feedback there. Now there's a ton of rails on this gun, with the exception of the left side because of the feeding channel here. There's basically 3 locations to put accessories on this gun. Now in terms of price point, I think we're looking at a little over $100 for this gun without all the accessories. Not bad. These guns are a lot of fun. I would say they're probably one of the best bangs for your dollar in terms of BB gun, full auto styled guns. Alright, some cons, there's always a few. The sights are non-adjustable and they're kind of that sort of cheap plastic. I would say if they're kind of hanging off the top without a scope or a red dot of any kind, they might be prone to breakage because there's just this little connection right here and they are plastic. And again, they're non-adjustable. Would have been cool to see metal sights and potentially with that rear sight being adjustable. Now I would have liked to have seen a little bit more metal on this gun. Now, I'm not talking about the actual shell. I'm fine with that being a polymer or plastic, but I would have liked to have seen, for instance, the sights being metal. I would have liked to have seen the selector switches, the magazine release, maybe even a few rails like that one that's removable. Couple things like that, the charging handle. I would have liked to have seen that in metal. It would have just added a little bit overall weight to the gun and given it a little bit more realism. And lastly, there really aren't any sling mounts other than this sort of hole here, so putting a sling on this gun is going to be a little bit of a challenge. Alright, so I want to thank you again for watching another Replica Airguns tabletop review. Don't forget to subscribe before you head out. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Username is Replica Airguns. You can also check out my written tabletop review over at replicaAirguns.com, where I'll post a bunch of additional high-resolution photos you can check out and sometimes some more information on these products. Now this time, I don't actually carry this in the Replica Airgun store, but we do carry Umarex products, so I expect to have this item in our Canada and US Replica Airgun store where we carry airguns, airsoft guns, blank guns, and accessories. Alright, thanks for watching another Replica Airguns video. Until next time, take care.